Alright, I just did want to let you know that I did just do a recording and it was 15 minutes, so I'm going to try really hard to keep it under that 10-minute mark, but I'm going to have to definitely not talk about all of my points listed in my notes section because they do get really long. So I'm just going to do a brief overview because, like I said, otherwise I'm going to go over that 10-minute maximum. So my first slide, I talk about the staffing problem that Michelle is facing, and I know for this that we had to make something up. So I basically decided to determine that there's a disconnect between some of her employees' personality and the culture of the company. Employees are not offering the best customer service, and they're not having the energy level that they need to work in a candy store. And a clash of culture can affect the performance of the employee, can cause tension with coworkers, and it can affect the overall productivity of the business. Cultural fit is having shared and aligned values and a mission in the workplace. So it's important to make sure that the employee's culture meets the same expectations of the company. My solution to this issue is that she restructures the interview process to address the issue before it gets too far along. So basically what I'm trying to say is that instead of waiting until she hires people to figure this out, is that she should address these 6 questions during the interview because hopefully they will help her determine, okay, these people either are a good fit or they're not a good fit. So the 6 questions I'm suggesting that she uses are: 1, what environment do you thrive in most and what drives your passion? The second question is, if you were starting a company from scratch, what would you want or what would you want your company's culture to be? The third question is, what is your ideal day look like? Fourth, what are your personal values and how are they aligned with the culture of the company's values? Fifth, describe your perfect job, company, and work environment. And lastly, in your opinion, what is leadership? So I think that if she asks these 6 questions, it will avoid her from getting too deep in the process and realizing she made a mistake. I like that it helps bring out the candidate's honesty, and it also helps describe to Michelle what their work ethic is like and the way that they work on a day-to-day basis, because this alone can help you determine if they're going to be a good fit or not. Here I list some important points about metrics in HR. First, metrics are only truly useful when they provide a basis for analysis. Second, the primary purpose of analytics is to support and improve decision-making process. So any metric that does not lead to action is not worth the time. Typically in today's HR departments, they overproduce data and information, yet there is little to no insight that achieves this primary purpose. So less is more when it comes to metrics and analytics. Third is to identify the appropriate audience for each metric. Many metrics are useful to those responsible to manage an HR process because they provide insights into the process improvements and opportunities in those regards. Fourth is, with most metrics, there is no defined desirable outcome. And the fifth point is that it's important to identify the handful of analytics that connect human capital management to organization strategy and key goals and objectives. Here I list some benefits of HR metrics. There's obviously many, many more benefits than just these 4. However, I felt like these 4 really kind of just are a nice overview. Obviously, they can get broken down extensively. So the first is that they provide insights that lead to positive actions. They not only help make HR departments solve problems more easily, but they also guarantee employees are satisfied, morale is high, and that ensures that the company is successful. Third, analytics are not just related to people, but other processes like recruitment, retention, compensation, benefits, and much more. Fourth, with analytics, HR can make better choices based on historical data. So I think like this is like the biggest benefit is that you can look back on some of the metrics and determine where you want to be for the future. You can look back and say, hey, this didn't work this one time, maybe we should go a different route, or vice versa. Here I list examples of HR metrics. I'm not going to go into the detail because they do get very long. So there's 14 different examples here that are metrics that are used in human resources. There's obviously many more metrics than just these 14 used. However, I thought this graphic was like a very good overview for those people that maybe just are looking for that higher level education on what metrics truly are. So these are the things that can be measured in HR. And these are the 3 benchmarks specific to Lollipop Company that we were looked to address that we were asked to address in this presentation. I'll break them down more in the next 3 slides. So the first is a goal of sales at $50,000 in the first year and an increase of 20% in the next 3 years. At the end of the day, revenue is your most important KPI, so it's key performance indicator. But while gross income might seem like a relatively simple metric, there's some nuance. So the 3 things that you should really look to break down in your revenue to see where things are coming from or how this is all calculated into each other is the first is the percentage of new business, which is obviously customers who have never bought anything from you before. The second is percentage of upsell, cross-sell, and expansion. So those would be your existing customers who are buying other products or upgrading to a higher product than they had in the past. And then the last thing to look down and break down and look into further would be the percentage of renewal. So those are those customers that continue to come back after they purchase a product. So the sales metrics to track in this situation would be the overall revenue projections, and then the monthly revenue target. The second thing we were asked to address was the staffing needs to include skills, competencies, and qualifications for the 2 positions. So we have the candy maker and the cashier. So for the candy maker, they have to have a passion for art and cooking. A degree in culinary arts is obviously preferred. They have to be creative, know basic math and observation skills, because with cooking, you have to know how to measure and how to make adjustments if necessary. And then they have to have strong practical skills as well. And if you take a look at my notes section, it does break it down further and describe those skills and traits more extensively. And then for the cashier, this is obviously a more entry-level position, so a high school diploma would suffice. They have to have basic math skills, interpersonal communication, and verbal skills that are great because they will be having that hands-on face-to-face contact with customers. And cashiers really are the people that the customers see when they walk in the door. So they have to set a good first impression, which means they have to be friendly, they have to have a positive attitude. Another thing that I really find to be necessary is punctuality. With a cashier, like there's people rotating shifts and all the time. So you have to make sure that these people are on time for their shifts. They're not showing up late. They're never absent. They don't call in sick, that kind of stuff. So those are all things you want to look for in those 2 positions. Benchmarks for the hiring process of candy makers and cashiers. So I have the 4 steps listed here on the slide, and I have them broken down more into my notes. So I'll just kind of briefly overview them since I'm getting close to the 10-minute mark again. So the first step is to just establish which jobs to benchmark. So in this situation, we have the cashier and the candy maker. Second, we want to establish the benchmarks. So we have to consider going beyond simply identifying education experience. We have to look at more and see what are the critical pieces that can help to figure out if a position is going to fit in the company or if they're not. So then I list the 3 different methods that I suggest, which is individual, stakeholder, and top performer. And this might vary based on situation or job position. The third step is to interview and assess. So I think that this is honestly the most important step because your benchmarks are ready to go at this point. There's no use in setting benchmarks about key personality traits and then simply focusing on experience. So it's important to ask those questions that I had mentioned in the last or a couple of slides previously. It's important to get to know the person's personality and see if they'll be a good fit. And then the last thing is to compare against those benchmarks that are set. How to achieve benchmarks when aligned to goals. So the first I said is to provide feedback and make sure that it's consistent because feedback can help employees focus on their performance and help provide them with the constructive criticism that they may need to achieve their goals. Make sure that tasks are properly allocated and make sure that people are taking on jobs that their strengths are in. So don't give someone that is weak in one area a task when someone else is strong in that area. So make sure that tasks are being allocated properly. Align individual goals with the company's goals. Make sure that employees are engaged, and this comes with recognition. So if you recognize your employees, they're more likely to be engaged because they know that their work is not going unnoticed. how to make sure that a company stays on track so their goals and their strategy. The first thing I said is that they start at the top and work their way down to create a cascade of goals and drive consistency and accountability, and then to encourage continual communication. And then here I'm going to be providing you with a link to this PowerPoint presentation. And there are my references. Thank you.